Imagine being locked in a cage for a crime you didn't commit. Not because someone framed you, not because the police hated you, but because a crowd of intelligent people, including doctors and judges, fell victim to a simple trick of the human mind, a cognitive illusion. Today, we're going inside the mind of a jury that used bad math to ruin an innocent woman's life. Welcome to Faust Mind. In 1996, Sally was a successful solicitor in England. She had a stable career, a loving husband, and a beautiful newborn son named Christopher. But at just 11 weeks old, Christopher suddenly died in his crib. The doctors named it SIDS, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. A tragic, unpredictable natural disaster. Sally and her husband were devastated, but they tried to rebuild their lives. A year later, they welcomed their second son, Harry. Then the unthinkable happened. At 8 weeks old, Harry died in the exact same way. To lose one baby to SIDS is a tragedy. To lose two feels like a statistics-defying impossibility. The police stopped feeling sorry for Sally. They arrested her. The theory was simple. A mother losing two babies under identical circumstances couldn't be a coincidence. It had to be murder. Sally Clark found herself on trial for her life, facing a room full of people whose minds were already made up. The prosecution needed proof, but they didn't have any physical evidence, fingerprints or traces. All they had was a terrifying pattern. So they called an expert to the stand. Professor Sir Roy Meadow, the country's most respected pediatrician. His testimony would seal Sally's fate. Professor Meadow looked at the jury and delivered a number that shocked the courtroom. He stated that the odds of a single cot death in a wealthy family like the Clarks was 1 in 8,543. Therefore, he argued, the chance of two babies dying naturally in the same family was 1 in 8,543 multiplied by 1 in 8,543. The result, 1 in 73 million. To the jury, this number felt like a mathematical absolute. If the chance of innocence was 1 in 73 million, Sally Clark had to be guilty. The court fell victim to a devastating cognitive bias, the appeal to authority. Because Meadow was a famous professor, everyone stopped questioning his logic. There was a fatal flaw in his math, a flaw that every mathematician in the world immediately recognized as a joke. What Professor Meadow did is not statistics as the prosecutor's fallacy. He assumed that the death of the first baby and the death of the second baby were completely independent events, like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin twice, the odds of getting tails twice is indeed independent. But human biology is not a coin toss. If a family loses one child to seeds, there is a high probability of an underlying genetic or environmental factor. The events are connected. In reality, the Royal Statistical Society later stepped in and calculated that the true odds were closer to 1 in several hundred, not 1 in 73 million. Worse still, the prosecution hid a vital piece of evidence. Medical reports showed that the second baby, Harry, had a severe bacterial infection. At the time of death, it was a natural tragedy, not murder. In 2003, after 3 years in prison, Sally Clark was finally acquitted and released. The math was debunked, but the damage to her mind was already done. Sally Clark couldn't escape the trauma of being branded a child murderer by a broken system. She developed severe psychiatric issues, and in 2007 she passed away from acute alcohol poisoning. Bad math had literally claimed her life. The jury didn't convict Sally because they were evil. They convicted her because the human mind is hardwired to prefer dramatic stories over boring, complex numbers. We blindly trust titles, and we fail to see our own cognitive illusions. Be careful who you trust and protect your mind. This is Faust Mind. See you in the next essay.